Maybe the janitor wants to try fixing it, since apparently my entire IT department is just here for the free lattes." The room fell into an awkward silence. Athena Rayner didn't even look up from her phone as she delivered the line, sharp, effortless, laced with a casual authority that only a billionaire CEO could wield in heels and a tailored navy suit. The dozen staffers gathered around her conference table exchanged uncomfortable glances, and the young IT specialist who had been poking helplessly at her frozen laptop shifted in his seat like a student being called out in front of the whole class. A light clatter echoed from the far corner of the room where the janitor was emptying the recycling bin into a gray plastic bag. Athena raised her eyes, then expression unreadable. "Mr. Cole, wasn't it?" The janitor paused. Mid-30s, tall, with quiet eyes that looked like they'd seen too much and said too little. His name tag read Ethan printed slightly off-center. His hands were calloused. His sleeves were rolled up just enough to show forearms dusted with faint scars. "Yes, ma'am," he said calmly. She tilted her head with a wry smile. "Feel like playing technician today." Everyone braced for him to stammer or walk away, but Ethan simply walked forward. "I'll take a look, if you'd like." Someone snorted. Someone else cleared their throat. Athena shrugged and gestured to the sleek silver laptop sitting like a wounded bird at the head of the table. "Be my guest." Ethan didn't rush. He pulled up a chair, sat down like he belonged in the room, and tapped the power button. The screen blinked faintly frozen on a loading interface for Project Althea, the company's next-gen AI health platform. Athena's pride and joy. A product the board was expecting to demo in 3 days. "You ran a system update this morning," Ethan asked quietly. Athena's brow rose. "How did you know that you're using a beta OS that's not stable with the company's legacy drivers? It's a common crash." He wasn't boasting, just stating a fact. Ethan's fingers moved over the keyboard like they were remembering a language his mouth no longer spoke. He entered commands in the console that no one in the room seemed to recognize. Lines of code danced. Athena's IT tech leaned forward, squinting. "Wait, what did you just rolling back the update isolating the conflict?" "There's a buried backup file," Ethan said softly. 5 minutes later, the screen glowed to life. Restored. Clean. Gasps rose. Athena leaned in. Her expression shifted, not to praise, not yet, but to mild curiosity. Then she noticed something odd. An unfamiliar folder had surfaced on the desktop. It was named simply Archive X9. "That's not supposed to be there," she said. Ethan didn't answer. He clicked it open, hovered over one file, and paused. "Don't open it," Athena said quickly. He ignored her. The document launched, black background glowing green code that streamed like rainfall. The room held its breath. Athena leaned closer. "What is this?" But Ethan had already seen enough. He closed the file, stood up, and pushed the chair back under the table. "That's your problem now," he said gently but firmly. Athena narrowed her eyes. "Do you even know what that was?" Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time not as her employee but as a man measuring someone who didn't know what they didn't know. "I wrote that," he said. And then he walked away, leaving a room full of stunned silence behind him. It wasn't until an hour later, when Athena sat alone in her corner office, sunset glinting off the glass and the cursor still blinking on that dormant code, that his words started to sink in. "I wrote that. It was impossible. That file had been a ghost rumored by the R&D team but lost in a corrupted migration years ago. Carson Briggs, her CTO, had once claimed the original code had never been finalized. Now it sat revived on her screen, clean, elegant, alive, and a janitor had brought it back with 5 keystrokes and a voice like quiet thunder. Athena didn't believe in coincidence, or magic, or miracles. She believed in results, which is why her fingers were now flying across the keyboard, pulling file metadata, timestamps, code lineage, tracing the digital DNA of what should not exist. There it was, an embedded author ID, hidden deep. Ecole, Young Dev, year 2016. Her mouth went dry. She clicked it again. Another file unfolded, this one just a string of notes, thoughts, reminders, bits of unfinished work. One line stopped her cold. If Lily ever sees this. I hope she knows her dad tried. Athena froze. Lily, she remembered a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, waiting outside the building some mornings with a backpack and a sketch pad hugging the janitor before school. She'd seen the girl drawing once in the courtyard. Sunshines, rockets, a big, smiling man holding her hand. She closed the file. There was something wrong here, deeply, disturbingly wrong. She stood up, went to the window, and watched as the janitor's silhouette crossed the parking lot, daughter skipping beside him, backpack bouncing. That man wasn't just a janitor, and this wasn't just a computer fix. This was a doorway. And Athena Rayner had just walked through it without realizing she'd stepped over the threshold. Athena Rayner had never been afraid of silence. She'd weaponized it in boardrooms, mastered it in negotiations, and worn it like armor during every investor pitch of her life. But tonight, the silence in her penthouse office felt different. Not strategic, not serene, haunted. The only sound was the hum of the computer monitor as lines of resurrected code blinked back at her alive and humming with a logic that no one on her team had managed to replicate in years. I wrote that. The janitor's words echoed again, as clean and precise as the code itself. No swagger, no bravado, just fact. She wasn't even sure if he had meant to say it aloud. Athena sat back in her leather chair and stared at the metadata again. Author E. Cole Ichir Dev, 2016. Date created 7 years ago. 7 years ago was when her father was still alive, when Carson Briggs had just joined Rayner Biotech, when Athena had been fresh off her Stanford MBA, too busy proving she belonged to notice who might be writing the very code that was now supposed to be hers. A code she thought was still incomplete. She clicked open the system logs. Her eyes scanned the restoration pathway Ethan had used, dozens of chained commands entered with surgical accuracy each step, unlocking a layer of archived memory that shouldn't have existed. Athena knew talent when she saw it. And this wasn't just talent. This was architecture. The next morning, she arrived at the office early before the cleaning crews before the marketing team flooded the elevators with their endless lattes and branded optimism. She stopped at the security desk. "Can you pull up the employment file for Ethan Cole?" The guard blinked, the janitor. She offered a measured smile. Yes, him. A few minutes later, she sat in the HR director's glass office scrolling through Ethan's personnel folder on a tablet. It was frustratingly thin. No resume, no college transcripts, just a name and address in Queens and a reference from a small nonprofit custodial contracting agency. But tucked at the bottom in a background check footnote was a line that snagged her attention like a hook formerly employed at Statera Labs 2009-2016. Departed voluntarily. She froze. Statera Labs had been one of Rayner's early competitors in AI-assisted medical diagnostics, an ambitious, underfunded startup that collapsed after a failed patent dispute. Her father had tried to buy them once, but the deal never went through. Athena picked up her phone and called Eleanor Tanaka. "Eleanor," she said, voice steady. "Do you remember the patent fight we had with Statera Labs back in 2016? There was a pause on the other end. I remember it well. We were interested in one of their neural prediction models. They filed an objection against one of Carson's patents, claimed overlap, and what happened? They withdrew, quietly, never showed up in court. Do you remember who filed the complaint?" There was another pause. Then Eleanor said carefully, "I believe the filing came from an engineer named Ethan Cole." Athena didn't respond right away. She didn't need to. That afternoon, she found herself standing at the glass wall of the 30th floor hallway watching a small figure in the courtyard below. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, sat on a stone bench with a sketch pad in her lap. Long, honey-brown hair tucked behind her ears. A crayon clutched in one hand. Her feet swung off the edge of the bench, mismatched socks peeking from beneath tiny sneakers. A drawing began to take shape, two figures holding hands beneath a golden sun. A tall man and a little girl. Athena didn't have to ask who it was. She turned and walked back to her office, heart pounding with a beat she hadn't felt in a long time. Not adrenaline, not anxiety. Responsibility. Later that evening, she passed by the janitor's closet on her way out. For the first time, she paused. The door was slightly ajar. Inside it looked nothing like she'd imagined. Neat, labeled, intentional. Mop handles stood perfectly upright. Cleaning supplies were arranged by size. A folded drawing hung by a magnet on the cabinet, a smiling sun, and the words written in child's print. Even broken things can shine again. Footsteps behind her. She turned. Ethan stood there, still in uniform sleeves, rolled back expression, calm but unreadable. "You don't knock," he said, not unkindly. "I wasn't sure this counted as your office." "It doesn't," he replied. "It's just where I do my best thinking." Athena hesitated. "I looked into your file." He didn't blink. "I figured. You used to work at Statera Labs. You built neural networks. You filed a patent claim against my company." His eyes didn't flinch, but his jaw set slightly. "Yes. Why are you mopping floors?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Because sometimes cleaning up other people's mess is easier than trying to fix your own." Athena didn't expect the answer. It disarmed her more than any denial would have. "You could have taken credit," she said. "That code, it's worth more than most people make in a lifetime. I didn't write it to get rich. I wrote it to help people." He looked at her then. But somewhere along the way, someone decided it could help them more. Athena's voice dropped. Carson Ethan didn't confirm. He didn't have to. Instead, he turned away and began organizing the shelf hands, moving with slow purpose. "Why did you stop?" she asked softly. "My wife died," he said, still facing the shelves. "Medical error. The device meant to monitor her failed. The same system I helped build. I filed the report, and then I walked away." Athena stood in the silence that followed the weight of his words folding into the corners of her chest. "I'm sorry," she said, and for once she meant it without agenda. He nodded. "Me too." She stepped closer. "Ethan, that code, the one you recovered, it's the most advanced model we've ever seen. And no one, not even Carson, has been able to rebuild it." He didn't turn. "I know." Athena took a breath. "I want to fix this, but I can't do it without you." Finally, Ethan turned back. His gaze was steady, not angry, not hopeful, just tired. "You don't need me to fix a computer, Ms. Rayner," he said. "You need to decide whether truth still matters in your company." Athena swallowed, then nodded slowly. "I'll get back to you on that," she said. That night in her apartment, she opened her laptop again. The code blinked softly on the screen, waiting. For the first time, she didn't look at it like a product. She looked at it like a responsibility, a legacy that didn't belong to her, yet somehow had found its way back into her hands. And she knew then, some ghosts don't haunt us. They just wait to be seen. The next morning, the elevator doors opened with a chime that felt louder than usual. Athena stepped out, coffee in one hand, determination in the other. The air inside Rayner Biotech's headquarters felt charged like the hum before a storm. She wasn't the type to lose sleep over questions she couldn't answer, but Ethan Cole had crawled into her mind like a glitch in perfect code. A janitor who writes neural architecture, a man who hides brilliance under silence. That didn't sit right, so she decided to find out who he really was. "Morning," Ms. Rayner said, Eleanor Tanaka, walking beside her with her usual calm authority. "Eleanor, pull every archived employee file connected to Statera Labs between 2015 and 2017, Athena said briskly. Eleanor lifted an eyebrow. "That's not exactly company business." "It is now," Athena replied. "And make it quiet. No one else needs to know." Eleanor studied her for a moment. "You found something, didn't you?" Athena didn't answer directly. "Let's just say one of our ghosts might still be alive and mopping our floors." Eleanor gave a faint smile. Then maybe it's time someone asked why. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Athena took the elevator down to the sublevel maintenance wing. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and metal. She found Ethan standing alone near a supply cart, sleeves rolled up, fixing a broken vacuum cleaner. He looked up surprised. "You shouldn't be down here, Ms. Rayner. This isn't exactly the executive floor." She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Neither was my office when my father started this company. He built it from a garage." Ethan gave a small nod. "Then, I guess we both clean up after someone's legacy." Athena smiled despite herself. "Touché." She took a slow step forward. "I read about you, Ethan Cole. Statera Labs. The AI system you were developing, wasn't it called NeuroTrace? He stopped working. You've done your homework. You filed a patent for an adaptive model that could learn from biological signals in real time. It's the foundation of what became our current AI medical platform." He didn't reply. His silence said enough. "You walked away," she continued softly. Why Ethan set the screwdriver down, turning to face her. His eyes were steady calm, but filled with the kind of quiet that comes from years of carrying something too heavy to share. "My wife, Emily," he said, finally. "She had a heart condition. I designed that system to monitor her vitals remotely to predict cardiac failure before it happened. It worked for everyone except her. The prototype failed when it mattered most." Athena's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "After that, I didn't want to build things that could break people anymore." There was a stillness that followed a stillness that didn't need words. Then Athena spoke quietly. "You know, I used to think technology could fix everything. Systems, people, grief. Maybe I was wrong." Ethan looked at her, then really looked and said, "Technology doesn't fix us. People do. Sometimes just by being kind when no one else is." She held his gaze longer than she intended. It was strange, standing in a dim basement surrounded by mops and detergent and realizing she felt more truth here than in all her boardrooms combined. Later that night, back in her office, Athena replayed his words in her mind while scrolling through an old press archive. There it was, an article dated 2016. Engineer Ethan Cole withdraws patent case amid tragedy. No follow-up, no closure, just a man who disappeared from the map. She stared at the photo attached to the article. Ethan looked younger then, smiling, holding an award. Behind him stood a woman with kind eyes and a little girl clinging to her leg. Lily. Athena exhaled slowly. The puzzle pieces were no longer scattered, they were forming a painful, beautiful truth. The code he'd written wasn't just data. It was grief turned into design, a digital prayer that the world wouldn't lose what he had lost. The next day, Ethan was cleaning the executive hallway when he saw Athena standing by the window phone in hand. The skyline burned gold behind her. She turned as he passed. "Ethan." "A minute." He stopped, cautious. "Sure." "Do you know what your code has done?" she asked, voice low. "We built an entire empire from it. It saved lives. Hundreds, maybe thousands. And yet you never said a word." He gave a faint, tired smile. "I didn't need to. As long as someone was saved, it did its job. You could have been the one leading this company," she said, her tone sharpening. "You could have been Carson's boss." Ethan's reply was soft, almost a whisper, "And miss out on learning how to scrub floors properly." She blinked, then laughed, despite herself. "You hide your wisdom under humor, don't you?" "It's safer that way," he said. "People forgive a joke faster than they forgive the truth." Athena studied him. "Do you hate me?" He frowned. "Why would I?" "Because this company, my company, runs on what was taken from you." He shook his head. "You didn't steal anything, Athena. You just inherited a lie. What matters is what you do with it now." Her name in his mouth sounded like something between a confession and a challenge. Athena looked away, jaw tight. "Carson doesn't know I've found out." "Yet." "Then you have a decision to make," Ethan said. "Expose him, and you risk everything. keep silent, and you become him. It was a brutal truth, but it was the only kind that ever led to redemption. That night, Athena couldn't sleep. She stood on her balcony overlooking Manhattan city lights flickering like constellations of human ambition. Her father used to say, "Integrity isn't something you build, it's something you protect." She realized she hadn't been protecting anything lately, not her company, not her father's name, and certainly not herself. She looked down at the file on her tablet one last time. Ethan Cole, former inventor, single father. Then she did something no one would expect from her. She wrote a handwritten note and slipped it into a plain envelope. The next morning, when Ethan opened his locker in the janitor's room, the envelope fell to the floor. Inside was a single line written in neat cursive, "If you're ready, I want to start over this time the right way." He read it twice, then again. And for the first time in 7 years, Ethan Cole allowed himself to feel something dangerous. Hope. Athena carried the file like a small detonator. She didn't announce it. She didn't broadcast a memo. She simply walked into the war room glass walls, whiteboards crowded with dry erase scrawl, the faint smell of leftover takeout, and sat down with her tablet. Around her, the product team shuffled through slides rehearsing lines for the demo. They assumed the morning would be routine. It wasn't. "Carson," she said as if she were offering him a problem set. "Pull me a clean build environment, full read-only audit, and get me Marco and Janelle on a secure channel." Carson Briggs looked up from his laptop, polished, composed the CTO who always had an answer. "We're on a tight schedule, Athena. The board expects a stable demo in 3 days. "So do I," she replied, "which is why we don't demo with ghosts." There was a flash across Carson's face that she hadn't seen before, something like a horse's ear twitching when a predator's near. He didn't ask which ghost. He only motioned to the security admin. "Do it," he said. But his eyes were on her, not the screen. They moved fast and quiet. Marco, the senior systems engineer, booted a sterile VM. Janelle, their lead data scientist, talked through hypotheses in clipped sentences. Athena watched as they fed the resurrected file into a sandbox environment, Project Archive X9, under monitored controllers. The code opened like a living diagram and the team leaned in. "Look at this," Janelle breathed, pointing at the screen. "Adaptive, waiting on physiological input, real-time morphology of the neural net. It isn't just predictive, it learns from the body as it responds." Marco rubbed his temple. No one designed the input pipeline like this since Statera. The harmonics in the loss function alone are decades ahead. Athena listened, feeling something that wasn't exactly pride nor dread, more like the cold recognition of a buried thing being dug up. "Where did you get this?" Marco asked. She said nothing. "You ran this by any external auditors?" he continued, brow furrowed. "No," Athena said. "Not yet." They worked through the afternoon. Tests that normally took hours ran in minutes under the architecture of the file. Simulated patient data folded into the model, and the model adjusted, not with the brittle, linear improvements of ordinary AI, but with a gentle patient intelligence that felt almost humane. It didn't merely forecast failure. It seemed to whisper a plan. Janelle spoke softly. If this were deployed ethically with proper oversight, it would have been a revolution. If it were deployed badly, Marco added, it could be dangerous. Athena felt the room tilt as if the floorboard had sprung a secret hinge. Danger and salvation lived on the same thin slab of code. She left the war room with a final order: no external backups, no cloud pushes, no repo merges. Archive X9 stayed in the sandbox. Carson learned more than protocol. Word moves fast in a company that runs on secrets. He was in his office phone to his ear when the security admin stopped by. "There's been an unusual sandbox load on Build 7, the admin said. Athena authorized it. She flagged a legacy file. Carson's mouth went thin. Who owns the legacy namespace unknown? Entry point labeled ecol.2016. Carson's eyes didn't leave the ceiling. The name landed like a pebble in a quiet pond, small, then widening. He closed his laptop with a deliberate click and walked to Athena's office. "You ran an audit without telling me," he asked, words even. She steepled her fingers and handed him the tablet. "We found something. It's an adaptive model. It outperforms our current lead on multiple simulations." Carson's smile was small and careful. "Who contributed the original work?" She watched him swallow the word Ethan without her saying it. The CTO's mask slipped just enough to flash something she recognized from the archives: sly, practiced, dangerous. "Carson," she said softly, "I didn't ask you to assign blame. I asked you to help me understand what we've got." "Understand?" Carson echoed, tone sharpening. Or control. Athena's fingers tightened around the tablet. She could have said that control fed the board, that control kept investors calm, but instead she said, "Control isn't the point. Integrity is." He looked at her as if that were a child's fancy. "Integrity is a luxury in business, Athena," he said. "You can build a public narrative around it while we deliver quarterly returns." Her reply was quieter but edged like a blade. And what returns are worth if they're built on a lie, Carson didn't answer. He left jaw-set shockwaves invisible trailing after him. By evening, the sterile sandbox had been replaced by a different kind of silence. Evelyn Tanaka's email was succinct. She wanted to see the file. Athena agreed. Eleanor arrived in the conference room wearing a cardigan that softened her presence like a well-worn blanket. She sat down, folded her hands, and waited. Eleanor read the sample with the slow attention of someone accustomed to legal nuance. "This architecture," she murmured, "reads like a craftsman's notes more than a corporate deliverable. Whoever wrote it was trying to speak to future users, not shareholders." Athena didn't need to ask what Eleanor meant. "Exactly," she said. "We've been executing this as a product, but the original intent—" Her voice scrapped right past the word humanitarian and hung there. Eleanor pushed her glasses up. This could be a godsend in emergency medicine, but it could also be misused if somebody weaponizes predictive interventions. "We need chain of custody fingerprints timestamp verification, and if that leads to an internal inquiry, you should be ready." Athena looked out the glass wall at the city's slender towers like fingers tapping out Morse code. "I didn't come here to punish anyone," she said. "I came here to find the truth." Eleanor's gaze softened. "Sometimes the truth asks more of us than vengeance does." Athena felt those words fold into her chest like a promise. Word of the sandbox leak found its way as secrets do to the board's ears within 24 hours. Carson called an emergency security meeting and demanded a full internal audit. He framed it as a protocol protecting IP safeguarding investors, but the meeting had the tone of a court-martial. Athena felt the room align against her, not openly hostile but suspicious the way a flock senses a fox. That night, in the dim of her office, Athena replayed the day's moments, the model's elegant lines, Janelle's wide-eyed awe, Marco's tight-fisted caution, Carson's shadowed look. She thought about the little girl drawing suns in the courtyard, the janitor who'd walked away from a world of accolades, and the single line in the file. "If Lily ever sees this, I hope she knows her dad tried." The words tasted like iron. She opened her notebook and wrote one question in block letters. "What am I willing to lose to do the right thing?" No answer came easy. But she had one certainty: the existence of Archive X9 changed the calculus of everything: her company, her legacy, and perhaps most dangerously her understanding of who she had been until now. Outside Manhattan did what Manhattan always did. It glittered and kept moving, indifferent to the small human dramas unfolding in glass boxes. Inside, in the lab's soft blue light, a file that wasn't supposed to exist hummed on, waiting for whoever had the courage to call it by its rightful name. The door to Eleanor Tanaka's office clicked shut behind Athena like the sound of a verdict being sealed. In her hands was a file stamped "Confidential. Archive only." It was thin, yellowing, and explosive. Athena sat across from Eleanor, who adjusted her glasses and laced her fingers together. "I pulled this from our legal archive like you asked," Eleanor said. "We never digitized it. I doubt anyone even remembers it exists." Athena opened the folder. There it was, a single-page complaint dated September 2016, filed by Ethan Cole, citing patent infringement on a neural learning model under development at Statera Labs. The file contained the name of the codebase NeuroTrace-X, the same internal name Carson had used for Rayner Biotech's early prototype back when he first joined. Athena stared at it. "So, it's true," she said quietly. Eleanor nodded. He filed the paperwork, but he never pursued it. The case was marked abandoned 3 months later. Why? There was no follow-up, no lawyer, no contact. Athena traced her finger along Ethan's signature at the bottom of the page, a younger hand, still full of belief. Eleanor's voice softened. "Sometimes people don't lose because they're wrong. They lose because they're exhausted." Later that afternoon, Athena found herself standing by the conference room window watching the courtyard below. Ethan sat on a low bench beside his daughter Lily, who was drawing again, fiercely with purpose. Her tongue peeked out at the corner of her lips, a child's concentration in full bloom. Athena thought of the sentence she'd read at the bottom of the old code file, "If Lily ever sees this. I hope she knows her dad tried. Not succeeded. Not won. Tried." The weight of it pressed against her chest like gravity. That evening, Athena walked the long corridor to the janitor's closet. For a second, she hesitated, then knocked. Ethan opened the door. His shirt sleeves were rolled, his forearms dusted with cleaning powder. He looked surprised, but not unsettled. "I need to talk to you," she said. He stepped aside. She entered. The room smelled of citrus and old dust. Athena didn't speak right away. She reached into her coat and pulled out the file. She handed it to him without a word. Ethan looked at it and froze. "I didn't know this still existed," he said. Athena studied him. "Why didn't you fight it?" He kept his eyes on the paper. "My wife passed 2 weeks after I filed that complaint. I didn't have the energy to fight for a codebase when I couldn't even keep her alive." Athena's voice cracked. "You deserved better than that." Ethan closed the file slowly. Deserve doesn't always win. There was a silence between them, but it wasn't cold. It was honest. Athena finally said, "Carson used your code. He buried it under layers, claimed it was his prototype, and we ran with it. I'm not asking if you're angry. I know you are. I'm asking if you're ready to be part of fixing it." Ethan's gaze lifted. "Fixing? Or covering?" "Fixing," she said firmly. "This company can't move forward on a stolen spark." He looked away. "It's not just the code, Athena. It was hope. That file was the last thing I built when I still believed in the system. And it got buried." "You built something beautiful," she said. "Even buried it, found its way back." He exhaled. She continued, quieter now. "I need your permission to pursue this officially. Not just legally, but publicly. I want the truth to be part of our next release. I want to name the core module after you. After your work." Ethan chuckled dryly. "Name it after Lily. She's the only reason I kept breathing." Athena smiled. "Done." Then she hesitated. "Would you consider stepping in even temporarily as technical ethics advisor, help us build the next generation of this model? The right way?" Ethan looked at her with something between disbelief and reluctant hope. "I've been cleaning toilets for 7 years, and now you want me in a boardroom." "No," Athena said. "I want you where you've always belonged, at the heart of the system." That silenced him. After a moment, he nodded. "But I won't lie for anyone." "You won't have to," she said. "Not anymore." The next morning, Athena called for a closed-door meeting with the executive legal team. Carson was not invited. As she laid out the history of the file, the abandoned complaint, and the recovered code, she watched the faces in the room shift from confusion to understanding, and finally to alarm. "We need to act before Carson does," Eleanor advised. If he senses what we're building behind the scenes, he'll try to destroy or discredit it. Athena agreed, which is why we're going to bring the truth to the board ourselves before he does. Later that week, Athena entered the lab where the engineering team was prepping the final build of the AI model for the upcoming investor demo. She watched as the screen displayed the updated architecture. A new name had been added to the developer credits in the interface core module Lily Protocol. Original design, Ethan Cole, no applause, no banners, just quiet acknowledgement. And sometimes that's the loudest justice. That night, Athena left the office late. As she stepped into the elevator, she noticed a familiar drawing taped to the wall inside a fresh one. Crayons, bold colors. A smiling sun, a tall man, a girl with a ponytail, and a woman with dark hair standing together beneath a banner that read, "Even the stolen light can still shine." No signature, but she knew exactly who had drawn it. And as the elevator descended floor by floor, Athena Rayner, CEO, perfectionist, daughter of a legacy built on ambition, felt something she hadn't in years. Peace. Not because things were perfect, but because finally they were honest. The morning sun poured over the Rayner Biotech courtyard like warm syrup, soft, golden, full of the kind of peace that made the city seem far away. Athena rarely came down here. It was too quiet, too uncurated. A space her father had built years ago for employee wellness, but in reality it had become a forgotten patch of stone benches and overgrown lavender. Today, though, it felt different. Maybe because the company itself had shifted, or maybe because she had. She spotted Lily right away. The little girl sat cross-legged on the stone bench sketchpad in her lap, a box of broken crayons beside her. Her ponytail bounced as she hummed a tune under her breath, head tilted hand, moving in small, confident strokes. Athena paused a few feet away. Lily didn't notice her. She was too focused. Her drawing was nearly complete. A bright orange sun, two figures beneath it, a tall man and a woman in a blue suit standing side by side. Between them, a little girl with her arms stretched wide. Athena smiled. "That's quite a masterpiece." Lily looked up startled, then relaxed when she saw who it was. "Oh, you're the boss lady," she said, matter of fact. Athena let out a soft laugh. "I suppose I am. You look different when you're not wearing those high shoes," Lily said, pointing to Athena's sneakers. "I get that a lot." Lily returned to her drawing, silent for a beat. Then, without looking up, she said, "My dad said you're trying to fix something." Athena blinked. "He did." "Mm-hmm." Lily picked up a blue crayon. "He said sometimes grown-ups make messes so big it takes more than one person to clean them up." Athena sat beside her slowly. "Your dad sounds wise." "He is, but also tired." That landed heavier than Athena expected. She looked at the drawing again. "Is this us?" Lily nodded. "And what are we doing?" "Standing in the light." Athena swallowed. "Why?" "Because you finally saw it." Silence fell like a blanket between them. Then Lily asked almost shyly, "Are you scared?" Athena turned. "About what?" "About telling the truth. My dad says it's the bravest and loneliest thing someone can do." Athena looked at the child beside her, too young to carry that kind of insight, and yet somehow carrying it anyway. "I am scared," she admitted, "but I'm also tired of pretending that silence is safety." Lily smiled, pleased. "Then you'll be okay." Later that day, Athena walked into the janitor's break room, which felt too small for the decision she was about to make. Ethan stood by the coffee machine, pouring weak black coffee into a paper cup. She held up Lily's drawing. "She says, 'This is you, me and her, standing in the light.'" Ethan looked at it. A soft smile touched his lips. "Sounds like her. She's proud of you." "I'm proud of her," he said simply. Athena stepped closer. "I want you to be there when I tell the board. You don't have to speak. Just be in the room." Ethan hesitated. "And if it all blows up, then it blows up honestly." He met her eyes. "You're changing, Athena." She exhaled. I know, it's weird. No, it's right. There was a long pause before Athena added, You were right about something else too. What's that? People fix people, not tech. Ethan nodded slowly. But sometimes, tech gives people a second chance. That evening, Athena sat alone in her office, the cityscape outside glowing in twilight. She opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope, her father's last letter to her given to her at the reading of his will. She'd never opened it. Too angry, too lost in trying to prove herself. But tonight felt earned. She tore it open gently. Athena. If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer around to disappoint or pressure you. I know I've done both. I wanted to build something that lasted, but I didn't know how to teach you to build it with love instead of fear. If you ever feel lost, look for the quiet ones, the ones who carry greatness without needing credit. They'll show you the way home. Dad. She stared at the words heart tight. And she thought of Ethan. The quiet one. The one who never asked for anything, just tried to leave the world a little better than he found it. The next morning, Athena walked into the boardroom with a straight spine and a full heart. The board members sat in polished chairs, laptops open postures, stiff with expectation. Carson was already there, smiling too wide. Athena stood at the head of the table. I have something to share, she began. We've recovered a legacy file in our architecture, a piece of code that predates much of our current system, and it was not authored by anyone on our present team. Murmurs. She raised her hand. The file was written by Ethan Cole. You know him as a janitor, but before that he was one of the lead neural engineers at Statera Labs. His code formed the backbone of our current AI platform. Stunned silence. She let it sit. This company has built its success on his work, uncredited, buried, nearly lost. I intend to correct that. We're releasing our next product under the name Lily Protocol, in honor of the code's origin and the daughter who inspired it. Carson stood red-faced. Athena, this is reckless. We'll face litigation, investor panic. We'll face the truth, she cut in. And if our company can't survive truth, it never deserved to survive. Ethan, standing quietly by the door, didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. That afternoon, Athena joined Ethan and Lily in the garden again. Lily had drawn a new picture this time. It wasn't 3 people. It was a company building surrounded by tiny figures all holding hands. In the center, a sun, and beneath it the words, "We built it together." Athena looked at Ethan, her voice low. Do you think second chances are real? Ethan's hand brushed Lily's hair. Not always, but when they are, they're worth everything. The boardroom smelled like new leather and old secrets. It always did when Carson Briggs called an emergency meeting. 12 members of the executive leadership team sat around the long walnut table, eyes sharp screens open, sipping from identical Rayner biotech mugs. Carson stood at the head like a conductor before an orchestra tie, perfect hands folded smile thin. Thank you all for coming, he began smoothly. There's been some recent movement on the AI architecture front. Unvetted files, unauthorized sandbox testing, and unorthodox personnel involvement. His tone was calm, but it rang with carefully curated alarm. Athena entered without knocking. She didn't need to. She walked in with a calm purpose, placed her tablet on the table, and met Carson's gaze directly. Good morning, she said. Mind if I sit? And Carson hesitated. Of course not. This concerns your team. No, Athena said clearly. This concerns our company's soul. The room shifted. Postures straightened. Mugs were set down. Athena took a breath and continued. Last week, I authorized an audit. During it, we uncovered a dormant file in our system, Archive Odd X9. Contained within was a codebase with predictive algorithms far beyond our current framework. It was written in 2016 by a man named Ethan Cole. Someone near the end of the table frowned. The janitor Athena nodded without flinching. Yes. Before he was a janitor, he was a neural systems engineer. His work laid the foundation for the AI system we're selling today. Carson jumped in, voice clipped. Athena, this kind of claim is damaging. Legacy code gets recycled, adapted. It's not theft, it's evolution. Besides, the man never held a position here. Athena tapped her tablet. A projection lit up behind her. Metadata, dates, embedded signatures. Then the complaint file. Filed September 14, 2016. Claim intellectual property violation. Plaintiff Ethan Cole. This complaint was buried, Athena said. Filed. Then forgotten. 2 weeks later, Ethan lost his wife to a device failure tied to this very system. He never followed through. A hush swept the room. He didn't lose the case because he was wrong, she added. He lost because grief took more from him than a courtroom ever could. Carson's jaw tightened. This is emotional storytelling, not business strategy. No, Athena said. This is business strategy. Because if we keep hiding what we owe, then eventually the market will find out for us. And when they do, it'll be too late to rewrite the truth. A board member asked softly, "What are you proposing?" Athena met their eyes one by one. We credit Ethan. Publicly, we relaunch our AI protocol under a new name, Lily. We make our next move not as a company that buries ghosts, but one that honors them. Someone muttered, "And the optics, we own it," she said, with honesty and grace. Carson stood slowly, measured. You're risking the company's reputation, investor confidence, legal battles, over a janitor with no legal follow-through and a drawing from his daughter. Athena turned to him. No, I'm saving this company from itself. And for the record, he didn't just draw code, he lived it. The tension snapped like a cable under weight. Carson's smile turned sharp. Then, let's vote. Let's see how many of us want to burn the empire down for sentiment. Athena didn't look away. She simply said, empires built on silence don't last. That night, Ethan stood outside the boardroom's glass walls watching the tail end of the vote. Athena had asked him not to be present out of respect for the process, but he came anyway, quiet, still. She walked out alone, her face unreadable. He raised an eyebrow. She exhaled. 7, 4, 5 against. Ethan blinked. You won. Athena gave a tired smile. We won. A silence passed between them. Comfortable. Whole. Then he asked, and Carson? Her smile faded. Cornered, but not finished. 2 days later, Athena received an encrypted email from IT. Someone had tried to access Archive X9 remotely from an external IP. When they traced it, it led back to a private offshore server tied to a shell corporation connected indirectly to Carson's family trust. She stared at the screen. The war wasn't over. It was just getting tactical. She forwarded the file to Eleanor. 2 hours later, Eleanor called. We can't prove intent. Yet, but we can restrict access. Freeze his permissions. Quietly, no press, not yet. Athena agreed. We'll handle it inside until we can handle it clean. That weekend, Athena went back to the garden. Lily was there again drawing. Ethan sat beside her watching the world move around them like a slow dance. Athena joined them, sat on the other side of the bench. Lily looked up. Did you tell the truth? Athena smiled. I did. Did it hurt a little? Did it help? Athena looked at Ethan, then back at Lily. Yes, she said, more than I expected. Lily nodded as if that made sense. She handed Athena the drawing. It showed a tall woman standing on a cracked bridge behind her shadows, in front of her light, and in her hand a small sun shining. Underneath, in big, wobbly crayon letters, she carried the light forward. Athena folded the drawing carefully as if it were a legal document. Then she looked at Ethan and said, You were never in the wrong place, Ethan. The world just wasn't ready to see you. Ethan replied, voice steady. Sometimes the hardest part isn't building the code, it's surviving long enough to see it run. They sat like that, 3 of them in the quiet garden, while the company above them prepared to be reborn. Not cleaner, not safer, but finally honest. The emergency call came just past 3 a.m. Athena was still in her office reviewing the security log reports. She hadn't been sleeping well, too many moving pieces, too many ghosts rising from silence. But the moment her phone lit up with Ethan's name, the world snapped into sharp, immediate focus. "Lily's in the hospital," Ethan said. His voice was calm, but under the surface it trembled. "Heart episode. They're running tests now. I'm with her." "I'm on my way," Athena replied, already grabbing her coat. The hospital hallway smelled of antiseptic and worry. Ethan sat hunched in a plastic chair outside Lily's room, elbows on knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. He didn't look up when Athena approached. "She's stable for now," he said quietly. "Arrhythmia. It's not the first time." Athena sat beside him without speaking. After a long moment, Ethan added, "She was born with a congenital valve defect, same as her mother." Athena turned. "You never told me." He gave a tired smile. "Some pain doesn't need retelling." Inside the room, machines beeped steadily. Through the window, Athena could see Lily, small pale, her drawing hand still taped with IVs. "What do the doctors say?" Athena asked. "They're adjusting her meds, watching for complications." He hesitated. "But there's risk. Always is." Athena swallowed hard. "I have something. I don't know if it'll help, but I brought it." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small black case. Inside, a sleek tablet loaded with a private offline instance of the Lily protocol, the real-time adaptive system originally born from Ethan's code. "I had the engineers run a pediatric calibration last week," she said. "I wasn't going to show it to you until it was tested further. But maybe this is the moment." Ethan took the tablet, stared at the interface. The dashboard pulsed softly. Sensors, inputs, predictions. His design, his logic, his fingerprints, his daughter. He looked at Athena. "You trust this, I trust you," she said. And that was the moment something in his face cracked just a little. Not fear, not skepticism, but the ache of a man seeing his past reappear. With a purpose. 2 hours later, with the hospital's cardiology team cautiously watching, they ran the Lily protocol alongside the hospital's equipment. The AI tracked Lily's vitals in real time, not just recording data, but gently interpreting it, adjusting predictive alerts, recalibrating thresholds with each new heartbeat. It caught a micro drop in her blood pressure 9 seconds before the machine did, recommended a shift in dosage, prevented an unnecessary intervention. The doctor looked at Ethan, stunned. This algorithm it learns as it observes. Ethan nodded slowly. It doesn't just predict, it listens. Athena stepped forward. And now it might protect. Outside, the first light of morning stretched across the skyline like a quiet benediction. Ethan and Athena sat on a bench near the hospital fountain, coffee cups growing cold in their hands. "You know, Ethan said when Emily died, I blamed myself. Not the device, not the hospital. Me. Because I was the one who believed in machines more than timing, more than presence." Athena was quiet. "I told myself I'd never build anything again," he continued, "because building meant hoping, and hoping meant losing." Athena turned to him. Her voice was low. "Then why did you write Lily's name into that code?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. Then, almost a whisper, "Because even when I stopped believing in me, I couldn't stop believing in her." Athena closed her eyes for a long beat. "That's why your code is different," she said. "Because it wasn't written to impress. It was written to protect. That's why it works." He smiled faintly. "That's why she works." They sat in silence. Not awkward, not empty, just full of breath, of meaning, of a quiet that had finally become healing. Later that day, back at headquarters, Athena stood in the glass-walled conference room watching as the engineering team finalized the system integration. Every line of code was now annotated with origin markers. No more gray areas, no more shadows. Credit, Ethan Cole. Protocol, Lily. When Janelle, the head data scientist, passed by her desk, she paused. "Did you know," she asked, "back when he fixed your laptop? Did you know he was him?" Athena smiled. "No, but he did." Janelle nodded. "It's poetic, really." Athena looked up. What is that the system meant to predict breakdowns was hidden by someone who survived one. Later that evening, as she walked down the hallway toward the exit, Athena found herself slowing at the janitor's supply closet. The door was open. Inside, the shelves were still neat. The mop still leaned at a perfect angle. But something new had been taped to the wall beside Lily's drawings. A photo. Old, worn. A woman smiling with her arms wrapped around a toddler. Ethan stood beside them, younger, lighter whole. Beneath it, a sticky note in Ethan's handwriting. She didn't get to see this, but maybe Lily will. Athena felt the breath catch in her throat. She closed the door gently. That night, she visited the rooftop. Her father used to come here during major product launches. Said the view reminded him that the world was watching. The wind was soft, cool. The city lights below blinked like digital stars. She pulled out her phone and drafted a message to the board. The Lilly protocol has successfully completed early patient integration. I propose we present it not as a reinvention, but as a reclamation, a return to our core values, and I'd like to include Ethan Cole's name on the press release not just as an engineer, but as the origin. Let the world know we're no longer running from the truth. We're building with it. She hit send, then looked out over the city again, not with fear, but with a strange hard-won peace, because the truth was no longer something to survive. It was finally something they could stand on, together. The boardroom was colder than usual, not in temperature but in tone. Mahogany panels gleaming glass-brushed steel. Everything was immaculate, intimidating, the kind of space where empires were protected and truths were politely buried. But today, that was going to change. Athena stood at the far end of the long table, her back to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The city sparkled behind her like temptation. But her eyes were only on the 12 men and women seated before her. Carson Briggs sat third from the right. Calm, polished, dangerous. To his left sat Eleanor Tanaka, fingers, laced eyes sharp as ever. And behind Athena, quietly firmly stood Ethan Cole. No mop, no gloves, just a simple navy shirt and the calm of a man who'd already lost everything, and had nothing left to fear. Athena began. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. I'll keep this brief, but I won't keep it safe." A few glances exchanged. Carson's smile didn't budge. She continued. "Last quarter, we initiated a code review on dormant legacy files. One of those files, labeled Archive X9, turned out to be the original neural structure behind our flagship product." She clicked a button. A screen behind her lit up. Code, signatures, timestamps. Embedded in that file was metadata linking authorship to a former employee of Statera Labs, a man who now works in this building not in R&D but as part of our custodial team. Ethan stepped forward. His presence alone made the room shift. Whispers fluttered. Athena didn't flinch. "His name is Ethan Cole, and I believe many of you owe your bonuses to his code." Carson stood then, slow and deliberate. "With all due respect, Athena, this feels more like theater than governance." Athena smiled thinly. "That's because for years you've treated this company like a stage where truth only matters if the audience demands it." Carson's voice dropped more venom than silk now. "Are you seriously suggesting that a janitor wrote the foundation of a system it took 100 engineers to stabilize?" Ethan stepped forward, voice calm but resonant. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating a fact." Carson snorted. "And why didn't you say anything before? Why mop floors for 7 years instead of demanding your throne?" Ethan didn't blink. "Because my wife died from a failure in a system I helped design. And after that, I didn't want a throne. I wanted silence." The room froze. And when the grief faded, he added quietly, "All I wanted was for the work to matter, even if no one knew it was mine. Eleanor stood next. Her voice carried the kind of weight only earned from decades of service and never asking for applause. "I've reviewed the original complaint," she said, "filed by Mr. Cole in 2016. It was quietly shelved, never escalated. No investigation. The patent trail shows elements of his work reappearing in our internal code 6 months after Mr. Briggs joined. Carson's mask cracked. You're reaching." "No," Eleanor replied, eyes locked on his. "You're just used to no one looking." Athena turned back to the board. "This is not just about credit. This is about consequence. If we let this stand, if we allow the truth to remain hidden, we are telling every engineer, every intern, every soul who's ever given more than they received, you do not matter unless you market well." She paused. "Let that land. Ethan never wanted recognition, but he deserves it. More than that, our company needs it. Because integrity is not a luxury. It's a foundation. And if we let cracks grow in the foundation, it doesn't matter how polished the glass is." A board member finally spoke. "And what do you propose?" Athena answered clearly, effective immediately. "Carson Briggs is relieved of his duties as CTO pending formal review. Ethan Cole is reinstated as Technical Ethics Advisor, reporting directly to the Executive Office. The Lilly protocol will launch with full attribution to its original source code author. A public statement will be made, transparent, undeniable." Gasps, silence, shifting chairs. Carson stood slowly, trying one last time. "If you do this, you'll fracture the board. Investors will panic. Media will eat it alive." Athena looked him in the eye. "Then let them. I'd rather face a storm with clean hands than build a fortune with dirty ones." Carson's smile finally died. "You've just committed corporate suicide," he said coldly. Athena smiled back. "No, I've just chosen to live." The vote was cast. 9 in favor, 3 opposed. It was done. After the room emptied, Athena stayed behind alone with Ethan. She stared at the city for a long while before speaking. "I used to think leadership meant protecting the company from anything that could shake it." Ethan nodded. "And now," she turned to him, "now I think it means protecting the truth so the company deserves to stand." He let the words sit, then said, "You did something rare today. What's that?" "You told the truth when no one demanded it." Athena's voice dropped. "You gave me the courage to." He looked at her, not as a janitor, not even as a partner, but as a man who had once built something in the dark, and now watched it step into the light. That night, Lily was discharged from the hospital. Her energy was back, and her questions came rapid fire as they left, about elevators, about heart monitors, about why nurses always wore sneakers. As they stepped into the quiet of the courtyard, Ethan knelt beside her. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. "I know." She grinned. "You fixed the code." Ethan laughed. "No, we fixed the story." From across the lawn, Athena watched the two of them, father and daughter, and something settled inside her. Not closure, not triumph, but the deep, humbling knowledge that some things once stolen could still be returned not as they were, but as they were always meant to be. The conference hall was packed. Reporters pressed into each other like puzzle pieces. Investors, developers, doctors, and dreamers all gathered beneath the massive banner glowing across the main screen, introducing the Lilly Protocol. It was a launch unlike any other in Rayner Biotech's history, not because of the tech, not even because of the buzz, but because for the first time it wasn't just about innovation. It was about redemption. Backstage, Ethan stood near the curtain adjusting the cuffs of his navy shirt. The same one he wore when Athena first asked him to step into the boardroom not as a janitor, but as an equal. He wasn't nervous, not because this wasn't big, but because the moment that truly mattered had already passed. It was the moment Athena Rayner chose truth over legacy. The moment she gave him something no one had offered in years, his name, his story, back. Athena approached him quietly, tablet in hand. She looked radiant, not in a performative, polished way, but in the way someone does when they've walked through fire and come out carrying someone else's torch. "You ready?" she asked. Ethan offered a small smile. "Only took 7 years." Athena looked down at the screen in her hands, then back at him. "I want you to present it." He blinked. "What, Lily? You wrote the heartbeat of this thing. The world deserves to hear your voice." He hesitated. "I'm not polished. I don't have a media-ready face or sound bites." She stepped closer, voice low. "You have something better. You have the truth, and it doesn't need polishing." Ethan exhaled, then nodded. "I'll follow your lead." "No," she said gently. "This time, I'll follow yours." When Ethan stepped onto the stage, the room didn't applaud immediately. They weren't sure who he was, but by the time he finished his opening words, they knew why he was. "My name is Ethan Cole," he said, voice steady. "I used to be a systems engineer, then a janitor. Now I'm both." Laughter rippled warm, respectful. He continued. 7 years ago, I wrote a neural learning system designed to adapt to the human body in real time. It wasn't perfect, neither was I, but I built it out of love for a woman I lost and a daughter I refused to give up on. He looked directly into the cameras. This system isn't just about prediction. It's about protection. It's not just data, it's dignity. It learns not only how to respond, but how to care. And it's named after the person who reminded me to believe again, my daughter Lily. The room went still. Athena stepped beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Today," she said, "we don't just launch a product. We launch a promise to build in the open, to honor the unseen, and to never again hide the light that could save someone's life." The applause that followed was thunder, not for the tech, but for the truth it carried. That evening, in the quiet of Athena's corner office, she stood alone before the glass wall, watching the city sparkle like 1,000 second chances. The launch had gone better than expected. Pre-orders flooded in. Media headlines buzzed with praise not just for the innovation, but for the integrity. But Athena wasn't thinking about that. She was thinking about something smaller, softer. A folded piece of notebook paper in her hand, another one of Lily's drawings. This one showed a tall woman kneeling beside a little girl, handing her a small son. Underneath it, she gave back the light. There was a knock at the door. Ethan stepped in holding a small white envelope. "What's this?" Athena asked. He handed it to her. "A gift." She opened it. Inside was a photo, a scanned copy of an old drawing one Lily had made years ago. It showed 3 figures, a man, a child, and a woman standing just a few steps away facing them, hand outstretched. "Lily drew this a long time ago," Ethan said softly. "She told me it was a picture of someone who would help us find the way back." Athena's voice caught. "She meant me." He nodded. "Before she even knew your name." Athena held the picture to her chest. "I didn't help you find the way back, Ethan. You did that." "No," he said gently. "You turned around. That takes more courage than any code." They stood in silence for a moment, wrapped in something quiet and true. Then Athena spoke. "I have a question. Shoot, would you ever consider coming back officially, leading a new division, ethical systems engineering?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You're asking a janitor to run a team of developers. I'm asking a father, a builder, and the man who saved us all, to shape what we build next." He chuckled. "You're good at this." She smiled. "I've had good teachers lately." He paused, then nodded. "All right, but only if you let me keep 1 night shift a week." Athena blinked. "Why on earth would you want that?" Ethan looked at her. "Because sometimes, when you're wiping away what's been left behind, you remember what's worth building." Later that night, they walked through the courtyard under a soft spring sky. Lily ran ahead of them, chasing fireflies with a mason jar and giggles too big for her little lungs. Athena watched her, then glanced at Ethan. "Does she know what you did for her?" He shook his head. "She doesn't need to. She just needs to feel safe." Athena nodded slowly. And you? What about me? Do you feel safe now? Ethan looked at her for a long time, then said, I feel seen. That's better. She smiled. Well then, maybe it's time someone saw you for more than the code or the silence or the pain. He turned to her eyes, soft. Maybe he said, but I'd rather be seen for who I became because of all three. Athena felt her heart shift, not suddenly, but like a lock finally clicking open after years of trying the wrong key. As they watched Lily dance barefoot in the grass, Athena whispered something almost to herself. Sometimes giving back the light is the beginning of your own. And beside her, Ethan whispered back, then let's build a future where no one ever has to lose it again. The community center wasn't grand. No chrome, no glass walls, no designer suits, just folding chairs, aging bulletin boards, and the smell of old wood floors buffed with quiet pride. But today, it felt sacred. Rows of local kids filed into the multi-purpose room, some dragging backpacks, others balancing laptops on their knees. A sign taped above the entrance read, STEM Saturdays. Build something that matters. At the front of the room stood Ethan Cole. Not in a lab coat, not in janitor's blues, just a navy button-up sleeves rolled a small name tag clipped to his chest instructor. He smiled as a boy raised his hand. So, you used to be a janitor and a coder. Ethan chuckled. I still clean up messes, just different kinds now. Laughter rippled through the room. At the back, Athena leaned against the doorway, coffee in hand, watching quietly. The sun streamed in through tall windows, catching dust motes in midair like confetti. There was no press, no investors. Just the honest magic of kids learning how to build something real with someone who finally believed he could. After class, Ethan packed up his toolkit while Lily chased giggles through the hall with her new friends. Athena approached the table, her expression softer than usual. She's thriving, she said, nodding toward Lily. She's free, Ethan replied. That's better. Athena tilted her head. You could have taken a corner office, you know. The board would have handed you anything after the launch. He smiled. I don't need an office. I've got a classroom. She looked at him, eyes shining. I meant what I said, you know, she added, about building something together. You already did, he said gently. You rebuilt me. Athena looked down, heart full. I didn't rebuild you, Ethan. I just stopped walking past your light. He paused, then reached into his satchel and pulled out something wrapped in old linen, worn folded carefully. She unfolded it slowly. A blueprint, faded ink, annotated margins, a schematic of the first neural lattice he ever designed. At the bottom, a note in his handwriting, not yet claimed. She ran her fingers over the edge. What is this? He looked her in the eye. The first thing I ever built that no one believed in. I used to carry it everywhere, hoping someone would ask. No one ever did. Athena folded the blueprint with reverence. Then let's be the ones who ask now, she said. Let's claim everything that was buried. Not just the code, the journey. Ethan nodded, his voice soft. Then, let's teach them how to build with light. Weeks later, a plaque was mounted on the lobby wall of Rayner Biotech HQ. Not flashy, not in gold, just stainless steel. Simple lettering. The Ethan Cole Initiative for Ethical Innovation. Even broken things can shine again. Visitors paused when they read it. Employees stood a little taller, and every Friday afternoon, Athena Rayner would walk down to the community center where Ethan taught. Not to supervise, not to speak, just to listen. Because sometimes the greatest leaders aren't the ones who talk the loudest. They're the ones who finally hear. On a quiet spring morning, Lily led Athena by the hand down the garden path behind the center. I have something to show you, she whispered. They stopped at a patch of soft earth. There, planted neatly in the soil, were tiny wooden signs with hand-painted names, one for each student. At the center, a young sapling branches reaching skyward. Lily pointed proudly. This is our hope tree. Everyone gets to add something to help it grow. Athena crouched down. And what did you add? Lily beamed. "A rock from our old apartment, because even small things can hold strong roots." Athena blinked away the sting in her eyes. "And what should I add?" Lily thought for a moment, then whispered, "A promise." Athena nodded, smiling, and she made one silently to herself. A promise to protect the light, to never ignore the quiet brilliance in the corners, to build a world where no child has to ask for their father to be seen. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Athena and Ethan stood on the rooftop of Rayner Biotech just like her father once had. Only now the skyline didn't feel intimidating. It felt possible. Athena handed Ethan a tablet. "What's this?" he asked. "Press release for the next version of the protocol," she said. He read the headline aloud. "The future rewritten with the ones who wrote it first." Ethan looked at her. "That title's too good. You didn't write that." She grinned. Lily did. They both laughed. Then a long, comfortable silence. The kind that doesn't need filling, just feeling. Athena turned to him. "You know, I used to think code was the most powerful language in the world." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And now I think it's truth. Spoken, lived, reclaimed." He nodded slowly. Then, with quiet certainty, he said, "Then this is the code I finally claim. Not the one in machines, but the one in people. In second chances, in stories no one expected to be heard." Athena looked at him, eyes bright with something deep and rare. "Then let's keep writing it." And as the wind lifted the edges of Lily's old drawing taped gently to the rooftop railing, they watched the sun set on everything they used to hide from, and rise over everything they had finally become. Together. Sometimes the most powerful stories aren't written in code or on paper, they're written in the quiet acts of courage that no one sees. Ethan's story reminds us that even when life forgets our names, our light never stops waiting to be found. Because the truth is, every one of us has a code we've left unclaimed, a dream, a kindness, a promise we once made to ourselves. And maybe it's time to claim it back. If you've ever witnessed a moment where kindness rewrote someone's life, or if you've lived through one yourself, we'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below, and let's remind each other that hope, honesty, and love still have the power to rebuild anything. And while you're here, tell us where in the world are you watching from today. We love knowing how far these stories travel. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspirational tales that celebrate second chances and the beauty of the human spirit. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this growing family of hope, healing, and light. Until next time, remember, even broken things can shine again.